Hi everyone, welcome to THT, and today we're going to talk about the second week of Planetary Qualifiers for Star Wars Unlimited. Thanks again for the competitive hub for providing us, combining us all the datas in one website so we can take a look at those results. And also would like to say that the winners of the giveaway have been contacted on YouTube. So if they can answer, give me their Discord name or their Facebook name, so I can contact them in private, so I can send them the free link for the upcoming Birmingham tournament. Going back to the results here, so we are now have a grand total of 11 PQs. So tournaments ranging between 50 players to 125 players for the biggest one. As usual, the European tournament seems to be significantly bigger than the American ones. So yeah, in terms of size, this is about mid-sized. It's not the biggest tournament we've seen, but it's still, of course, the very significant result in terms of understanding the meta, because there's just so many of them. So this is a lot of data to understand the meta and all. So the first thing I want to say here, so I'll go there into conclusion after we go back. So first we got the PQ in Barcelona, where you got 88 players, top 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 Boba yellow, 1 Boba blue, 1 Boba green, 1 Boba red. So all 4 flavors of Boba in the same top 8, a Tarkin yellow and a Bossk green. And the tournament was won by Boba yellow versus Boba red. Not a big surprise here. We know that Heart Control does pretty well against Boba in general. With that being said, something that I've experienced for myself, I did a lot of playtesting using Bossk blue against Boba, and basically the trend that I've been seeing is that Boba does pretty poorly main deck. Like in the main deck, that naturally Heart Control is naturally good against Boba. The problem is, once the Boba deck I've made some adjustments from the sideboard, the trend can completely flip around in favor of the Boba green of the Boba deck. So I don't expect Boba red, for example, to be able to have a good matchup against Boba blue, but a deck like Boba green can really adapt its sideboard in order to beat Heart Control. And this is a pretty scary thing, because Heart Control was one of those decks which really helped beating those Boba decks. And they don't seem to be able to do that anymore, at least not as well. Boba Yellow can really adapt its sideboard to beat Control, and Green can do it even better. Boba Yellow is still gonna have to be a bit lucky to get there, because he needs those early pieces early on in the game. While Boba Green can have some very powerful late game answers to a Heart Control, and he can draw them relatively reliably as the game goes very long. Anyway, congratulations here to Boba Blue. It's a strong deck. I've seen it. I called it very, very early on that it was a very strong deck. So not surprised to see it succeed here. And moving on to the PQ Leiden in the Netherlands. 125 players. 1, 2, 3 Boba Green, 1 Han Blue, 2 Ray Tarkentown, and 2 Bossk Blue. And the winner is Ray Tarkentown. So Ray Tarkentown, my opinion about it is that I always found Ray Tarkentown to be significantly worse than the Han 2 Blue. Because I think that Ray Tarkentown plays the game a little bit too fair, while Han Blue has this ability to really curve out and puts a tons of pressure, and also has this aggressive, is much more consistent because of his ability to kind of play things in different orders. So, yeah, I would like to. Unfortunately, we can't really see the list here. We'd like to see those games to see how those Ray perform, what they do. That is, Ray has the ability of being able to play Tarkentown, which gives it a good matchup versus Han 2, but Han 2 does no longer represent a huge part of the meta anymore. So I don't know how big of an advantage that would be. So is it an anomaly, or maybe Ray is a big sleeper? I don't exactly know, but Ray Tarkentown has always been a very solid deck. I think it's a very solid deck. I just think Hand to Blue is a better deck. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Here we got the PQ at Copenhagen, which had smaller PQ of 53 players. We got a Boba Yellow, Boba Red, a Sabine ECL, Boba Green, Cat Bane Blue, a Kylo Yellow, a Boba Green, and a Kira Green. So we have the deck list, so I'll just go over it. So this is a Kira Green, and it's very interesting Kira Green. So yeah, it's pretty classic Kira, playing 30 HP base, which I think is the way to go. Because even though, you need to buy it to beat Boba, and ECL maybe is slightly better against Boba, and that's not even sure, to be fair. You still need to be able to beat Sabine, and I think the way you beat Sabine is simply by switching base. I don't think Kira benefits enough from ECL, from my experience, to be justified. The rest of the deck is pretty classic. The only interesting part is the Clan Saxon Gauntlet, which I think are an anti-Boba attack, and I think it's a very smart one. It really blocks Fire Spray, because it's going to turn as a 5/6 against Fire Spray. It's not going to kill Fire Spray, but it's going to survive the attack. So then next turn you can attack the base or attack back and win. So it's a very good card against Boba, against Fire Spray. So that's basically what it's for. It's not, it's very specialized, but in this matchup it's a pretty good card. Then we got Boba Green, pretty classic Boba Green value deck. Plays the commissions here, which we've seen sometimes in certain versions of the deck. The Relentless in the main. So as you can see here, very well prepared against Hard Control, as he plays 3 Relentless after sideboard, plus the Puppet's Return, plus the Bazine in the main deck, plus the TIE Phantoms. And I think this is kind of the way to go. This version of the deck is incredibly difficult for Hard Control deck to beat, because after sideboard, because the sideboard is just so insane against it. So that's kind of like my thought process here, is that, and the big problem with Boba Green right now is that people right now are building Boba Green so it based Hard Control after sideboard, and that's a problem. If the game goes long enough so you can get through all 3 games, you're in good shape as Boba Green. Then we got Kylo Yellow. Kylo Yellow, this is sometimes we see this deck doing some results. It's a very all-in, very aggressive deck. Plays the triple Dark Raid version, which is the version that we've seen making results the most often, because it gives it a little bit more aggressiveness. Then we got the Cat Bane Blue, which I've heard before but never seen do any result. I think this is the first time we see Cat Bane Blue making a top 8 result. It's a fairly small tournament, so you got to take this with a grain of salt. As you can see, loads of ambush. It controls, wow, it's almost an ambush deck. Loads of ambush. A couple of removal. The Vanquish is being played over Rival's Fall and Fell the Dragon, which is interesting. No answer to Boba Fett's armor though. The deck did just lose to Boba Fett's armor. Anyway, interesting. Another Boba Green. This one plays the Phantoms in the main deck. Once again, you see those sideboards here. It's double Relentless, double Puppets in the turn. That's just very difficult to fight through. A Sabine ECL, the fairly classic one, does not play the... he does play it in sideboard, yeah, those patrol wings. But pretty classic version overall. The whole package of Metal Ceremony here, which is interesting. And then we've got the finalist here with the whole space Boba Red deck, which I think is very strong deck. I think if you are a beginner in Star Wars Unlimited and you're looking to find a deck that is easy to play and that is fairly powerful, I think Boba Red is the best one. Boba Red is incredibly easy to play. All you gotta do is pay units in space, attack base, control a few cards with those things. It's a deck that almost does not take into account what the opponent is doing. It's probably one of the most uninteractive deck in the game. That's why it's particularly frustrating to play against. But yeah, no, it's a very strong deck. it's probably one of the easiest deck to play. So if you are a new player and you're looking for a deck that has a chance to win a PQ, this is probably the way to go. And then we got the winner here, Boba Green. Once again, you see this time, second Relentless, 3 additional Palpatines. Yeah, that's basically Hard Control is gonna have to fight through 5 Relentlesses throughout the game. That's just disgusting. Okay. We get now the Spielraum that happened in Austria. That's 80 players. Boba Green, Boba Yellow, Sabine CL, Kira Green, Boba Red, and Han Green. Once again, an extremely heavy Boba focused. We're gonna see the list of the winner here. It is very similar to everything we've seen before. This deck seems to be stabilizing, and this is basically this green value deck that we've been talking about, and that the first person who obviously initiated that deck was in Manchester in a Manchester tournament by Josh, running his value green deck, running his 54 Boba green deck. And what was very interesting about his deck was that basically I saw the list and I immediately identified that this deck was extremely powerful. And I was like, if this deck is capable of winning such a major tournament running 54 cards, I cannot even imagine how much stronger the deck is going to be if people start running this deck with 50 cards. And now we're seeing the results. It's basically everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. It's the most dominating deck in this deck, guys, is the most dominating deck in the history of Star Wars Limited. It has pretty much no weaknesses. Like it's extremely well-rounded deck. It's able to be aggressive. It's able to play the value game. It's able to outshine hard control decks. This version can even be the 2 Devastators, 2 Shoe Sides, can even beat like super grindy decks like Kira or Palpatine Blue, or Palpatine Green with those guys, and put tremendous amount of pressure. It's just an absolutely beast. Very, very strong deck. Here we got the Patriot game in England. That's 116 players, so pretty large tournament as well. This won by Bosk Blue, Han2 Blue, Kira Green, Boba Yellow, Boba Blue, Boba Yellow, Boba Green, Han Yellow, and Boba Green. That is very representative of the meta. To be fair, I think you just gotta replace maybe a couple of maybe Han Yellow by Sabine, and that's pretty much what you would expect. No Sabine, but other than that's pretty much what you would expect from the meta. Then we see PQ Rochester. We got ourselves a Boba Green, 2-1, Boba Green, Boba Yellow, Boba Green, 7 ECL, Boba Green, Han Yellow, Boba Yellow. I'm assuming those are Han 1 Yellows. Han 1 Yellow's been doing pretty well in the second season of the tournament. And the final was Boba Green versus Boba Green. And there's a stream of that tournament, which is pretty cool. Then we got Pastimes, Comic and Games at a PQ Chicago. So this tournament was won by Boba Green again. Boba Green, Sabine ECL, Han Green, Boba Tarkentown, Boba Yellow, Sabine ECL, Sabine CBL, Sabine Yellow. So much more heavy-handed Sabine. We have a limitless link here, so we're going to check it out. So yeah, so if we go into metagame, and we see that Sabine represented 22.64% of the meta. So that is way more than that is way more than what we usually see. Like, this is an anomaly in terms of the amount of Sabine players that play this tournament, and that's probably the reason why Sabine is so heavily represented in this tournament, because we saw way more than average Sabine participation in this. Just want to give a special shout out to Loopy from the Late Night Gaming crew. Those are friends of the channel. I actually played against him. He invited me to play games. You can check out the channel. I actually play against his Sabine Isia, playing my Bosque Blue. And so really happy to see him. I think he made the top 4 performances in this tournament. And then we got Sabine Yellow by Rebel Resource. So, you know, Ryan Warner is the absolute master of Sabine Yellow. He's been playing Sabine Yellow since even before the rest of the game, and he's been playing very competitively, taking part in Take the Initiative and all that stuff. So a very, very experienced Sabine Yellow player. Is not surprised to see him doing well as well. So also a friend of the channel. So really nice to see those guys doing well. And now moving on to night and day games at Las Vegas. So this time a bit of a weirder meta. So hand 2 ECL, hand 1 green, Boba red, Sabine ECL, Kira ECL, Ray Tarkentown, and Bosque ECL. So definitely a very different meta here from what we're seeing above. Only one Boba, and that Boba being a Boba red. 98 players. I feel like in the US the meta is not as figured out as in Europe. In Europe it's very clearly Boba dominated. In the US it's a bit more. It depends on the tournament. It's a little bit all over the place. So I really don't know why that is the case, but interesting results here. I mean, all those decks are pretty famous competitive decks, so these are not like crazy outliers, but yeah. Then we got a PQ Torino. Happens in Italy. 96 players. Boba green, Boba yellow, hand 2 blue, Bosque blue, Kira green, Gar Saxon yellow. That is definitely interesting. And Bosque blue and a Bosque green, and the winner was a Boba green. You see Boba green versus Bosque green. I definitely want to check out this matchup. Would like to see the deck list here. But yeah, what I expect is, as I said, Boba green. Before sideboard, Bosque is very heavily favored, but then after sideboard, the matchup flips around. If the Boba green has the right cards in the sideboard, like multiple Relentlesses, multiple Palpatine's Batons, the matchup really flips in favor of Boba. And Bosque doesn't really have many answers to this. I mean, he can have Avenger, but that's not always enough. Then we got a PQ in Lyon. In France, 111 players, hand 2 blue, Boba yellow, Boba blue, Han yellow, Han blue, Palpatine blue. So this time we got some deck list and the final was, so that was the, so just gotta see here you go. Okay, so it's Iconu Jr. who actually won it, yeah. Yep. Okay, so yeah, we got two. Oh yeah, there's the Han blue list and the Han yellow list. Okay, so this is the winner of the tournament. So Iconu Jr. is a very known player from the Take the Initiative community, because he's basically taking part in almost all Take Initiative tournaments, leagues, and I don't think he always made it to the top 8, but almost to the top 16, but often he does. And this guy is he's 12 years old. I think he's 12 or 14 years old, so he's very young, and he's really good at the game. He's been playing Han green since the beginning of the release of the game. I mean, basically from the moment I showed the list on my channel, then he started picking up the deck from there. And he's basically been grinding out this all different versions of Han, so he's very experienced Han player. Maybe one of the most experienced Han player you're going to see. And he was playing Han yellow, as you can see. His deck is pretty much what you would expect. You have the Spark of Hope in the sideboard. Apparently it's an anti... it's an tech against Boba, because very early on Boba will kill one of your units, and then you can just use Han's ability and play Spark of Hope on turn 2. So it's a very card intensive tech, but this allows you to deploy Han before Boba comes out, and give you a chance to get the hand double ramp and get your 7 drops before it gets dealt with. So I would like to see this in action, but that's definitely the idea here. And we got a hand blue in there as well. So yeah, it's an interesting deck. So we got still the Tech DJ combo in there. But as you can see, he's trying to play as many blue cards as possible to take advantage of Kuhl. Kuhl is great in hand blue because you're doing card advantage with hand's ability, but then you get your card back with Kuhl. It's nice. And then obviously Luke Skywalker, double ramp into Luke Skywalker is the best 7 drop available in Heroism, so being able to double ramp into Luke Skywalker is very effective. Luke Skywalker, in my opinion, is the main reason to be playing Han. Also, Obi-Wan is very strong as well to protect your Han. Only card that I'm a bit surprised about is the Don't Get Cocky. I wonder how good this card was in the specific deck, how often it actually triggered. That would be interesting too. But nice to see some different decks making it some result here. Once again, one rogue deck per top 8 is kind of the average. Then we got the Forge PQ Shaxa. This one has Boba Green, Boba ECL, Boba ECL, Boba Yellow, Sabine ECL, Sabine ECL. This very stereotypes, 5 Boba, 3 Sabine, and some Boba ECL here making it to the list here, so maybe some more tempo-focused version of Boba. Very competitive deck as well. And very competitive deck as well. And but I think Boba Green, the regular Boba Green 30 HP base, is a bit more capable of adapting itself to different circumstances, while Boba ECL is a bit more closer to what the Boba Yellow is trying to do, but I don't think it does it as well. So yeah, couple of data. So obviously I'm going to be answering some of the loads of comments that happens below my Boba video. So I made a video where I talk about whether or not Boba should be banned or not, and my conclusion was that I think it's a little bit too late to ban Boba for set 2 because set 3 is about to be released. And I think, as we know, we saw this, for example, in early Spark of Rebellion, where basically before the release of the game, Boba Green was also dominating. And then basically the release of Super Laser Blast and people starting building a hard control deck completely flipped the meta. So that means that even one card can change the meta drastically. So obviously a whole new set coming out is likely to have some massive impact on the meta. And it is not guaranteed at all that Boba is going to still be that strong in the next Boba, in the next set. All we know is that in this set 2, Boba is absolutely dominant. And people who are, so there's been 2 kinds of comments that people have been basically, and so basically if nothing is done, let's say if my premise was if the new set does not solve the Boba problem, then absolutely 100% Boba needs to be banned. That was kind of my conclusion. And for the rest of the set, if let's say we were living in a world where the set 3 is not coming out for another 2 months, then for sure Boba would need to be banned, because here those results are not healthy at all. We are talking about so there were 88 lists in between those 11 tournaments, 11 top 8 lists. And in this top 8 list, obviously in order to get better data, we need to take into account top 16, whatever. But here with what we have here, 88 lists, 40 of them were playing Boba as a leader. That is about 45.45%. That is insane. That is completely insane. Like, just to give you kind of a reference point, in my opinion, the sweet spots for a deck is to be around 10%. That's basically a good spot to being the best deck in the game. If the best deck in the game is 10% of the meta, that's a very healthy meta. 12, 13, 14%, that's acceptable. Anything beyond 40% is too much. And here we're not at 14%, we are 40%, we are 45%. That's insane. Obviously, not all those Boba decks are the same decks. Boba Blue is not the same as Boba Green. It's not the same as Boba Yellow. It's not the same as Boba Red. So you could consider those decks are different decks. And it is true, even though I believe that Boba Greens and Boba Yellow are fairly close to one another. But if you only take into account Boba Green, the best of them, it represents 19% of the meta. That is almost twice more what the healthy amount is. So even if you take into account just Boba Green, it is still way above what I would consider a healthy meta. So the data shows clearly that Boba is overpowered, and I don't think anybody can say otherwise because the data are here. This is just factual. Not only this, this is obviously top 8 results, that means we're only taking into account the list that actually succeeded. I'm sure that the percentage of Boba in the overall tournament is much lower than this, but it ends up being 45% in top 8, which is another argument to say that Boba, and it's not a trend that we're just seeing from the PQ. Something people are saying, well, it's just something that has happened recently with the Planetary Qualifier season. And I disagree with this. Boba, in general, has been the most represented deck and the highest win rate deck across all tournaments. Remember, in almost every single of my tournament reports, I always put at the end, yeah, Boba is still king. I put this in almost every single videos of my tournament report, whether it was the Madrid tournament, the Leicester tournament, or the Manchester tournament. Every time, Boba Green still is the highest performing deck. Boba in general is the highest performing deck. So this idea that it's a new phenomenon is not new at all, and that's the reason why people are so fed up with it. So, as I said, I think it's too late to ban Boba for set 2. We'll see what set 3 brings to the table, but at the moment, Boba is the best deck. So the next question and no ban is going to happen until. So what should we do for the rest of PQ season? So there's been 2 arguments to kind of say Boba doesn't need to be banned. The first argument that people are putting out is saying if you ban Boba, then Sabine is going to be insane. Because Boba has a good matchup with Sabine, so presumably Boba keeps Sabines in check. And I disagree with that argument, and I answer to many of the replies say that simply because Sabine is a very strong deck, but it is a counterable deck. If you really want to beat Sabine, you can. And a lot of decks can do that. For example, Kira can build itself to beat Sabine. Bosk Blue has an excellent matchup against Sabine. There are other decks, like for example, Cat Bane Red has very good matchup against Sabine. I think Han 2 Blue can also build itself to beat Sabine. So Sabine can be built if you beat against it. While Boba is kind of unique in the sense that he's a mid-range deck that can win in so many different ways that beating Boba is a much more difficult task. We used to be able to beat Boba by playing just hard control and being able to just out-dominate Boba. But what happens is that Boba got so many powerful anti-control tools in set 2 between Palpatine's Return, Bazine, and Palpatine's Return, Sabine, and Bazine, sorry, and TIE Phantoms, that it is not really longer possible. Like now, if Boba Green wants to have a good matchup against Out Control, it can have it, no problem. And that's a major issue. So now basically the next best thing you can do against Boba Green is to be playing a more of a, like basically the black green blue shell, like whether you be playing Palpatine blue or you play Kira green, can have a decent matchup against Boba, but it's not going to be something along the line of 60%. It's going to be something along the lines of 55-50%. So you can have like a slight hedge against Boba, but then the problem is that the more you try to squeeze your game to beat Boba, the more vulnerable you're going to be to aggro. And that's the other issue with those kind of decks. So here's the thing. Why would you bother to try to build a deck that can have maybe a 55-60% win rate against Boba Green when you know you're going to be having a horrible matchup against Sabine? While you can simply just play Boba and have a 50% chance against all of your bad matchups and have a great matchup against everything else. And the answer is obviously the right choice is to play Boba Green, and that's the reason why we see Boba Green so strong. Boba in general being so strong. So that's the problem here. So the idea of like simply saying, so people were saying you can simply just counter Boba Green, and I said there's no real counter to Boba Green, or at least there's no counter to Boba Green that doesn't make you insanely vulnerable against other decks. And for people who are saying that if you are banning Boba, then you also have to beat Sabine Boba to ban Sabine, that's not true at all. If Boba gets banned, people will build themselves to beat Sabine, and Sabine will be at a decent spot. So that's because Sabine is just so much easier to counter. That's just the way it works, in my opinion. So I think that if right now, let's say the next set was not going to come out for the next 2 months, definitely you would need to do something about Boba Green. So obviously this is not going to happen before the end of the set. As I said, they're just going to wait for set 3 to roll out. So in the meantime, what can you do to beat Boba? My opinion is you should either play Boba yourself, or you should be playing a green-black deck. Like, I think I've seen some lists, some Palpatine blue lists, some Kira green lists that are fairly heavy-handed, that are very strong late games, and those decks can definitely have a good matchup against Boba, but then they will have to suffer against Sabine. So it is something to note. So this is, in my opinion, the approach I would take to beat Boba, probably. If I was wanted to beat Boba and play a different deck than Boba. But as I said, it's not the magic answer. You're not going to have a good match against everything. So it is a very tough thing to do. Other interesting stats concerning those top 8s here. We got 11 PQs. 7 of them were won by a Boba deck. That's also insane. And 4 of them by Boba Green. That's also insane. 4 of them Boba Green and 1 of them Boba Isia, which is almost the same deck. So it's like 5 of them being beaten by Boba Green. That's insane. That's over almost 50% win rate for this deck. That's another piece of stats that you can get from home. So yeah, different ways of approaching this. So either play Boba yourself, and the best player wins, or either you can decide to try to beat Boba by playing those kind of super kind of mid-range control decks. Hard control decks is no longer a great answer to Boba Green unless you are playing to time. So what happens is you get game 1, you win game 1, then game 2 comes to time, and then you win like this. That's an approach you can take, but very unreliable though. That's another way, or you can just decide to not engage with this at all and say, okay, well, I'm not going to be playing any competitive until the end of the set, and all I'm going to do is play some draft, play some sealed, play some cube drafting. End of the season is always a great moment to do cube drafting. Enjoy the game at a more casual level and wait for next set to see how it goes. It's not going to be in a long time. It's basically 15 days for the pre-release for Twilight of the Republic, so just take a break and enjoy the next set. Anyway, thank you so much for this video, and I'll see you next time. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.